Welcome to the 10th Sunday after Pentecost. It's Sunday, July the 28th, 2024. This is the Manna at the Tap podcast, where we as a community actively seek the spiritual nourishment our souls crave. Our journey today is guided by the lectionary text of John chapter 6, verses 1 to 21, which will provide the manna designed to nourish our spiritual growth. I'm Gloria, your fellow traveler on this spiritual journey, and together we offer and receive insights and interpretations from our daily lectionary readings, enriching our collective understanding. The feeding of the 5,000 is the only miracle recorded in all four of the Gospels. And John's Gospel is the longest of the narratives, giving us a detailed account of what transpired that day. Matthew, Mark, and John also tell the story of Jesus walking on the water. And John will link the two stories as one unit, attempting to answer the question, who is Jesus? The answer will come through the people who need Jesus, the hungry crowd, and the struggling disciples out on the water. So I invite you to become a part of either narrative. Jesus is at the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, and a great crowd of people are coming towards him as he and his disciples are sitting down on a mountain. Who are these people and why do they follow Jesus? John writes that they are following Jesus because they saw the sign of him healing the sick and were looking for another sign. And there was such a great crowd because the Jewish festival of Passover was near. So we had people looking for another sign, but it was also the season of Passover was very close. And by the way, this was not the Passover when Jesus died, just so that you can keep that in order there. Before the crowd arrived, Jesus asked Philip where they could buy bread for the people to eat. John says this was a rhetorical question because Jesus already knew what he would do. Philip wondered how much bread would be needed and how they could afford it. It would cost more than half a year's wages. Andrew, Peter's brother, joined in by offering the meal of a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But Andrew too wondered how far that would go between so many people. How often do we see scarcity in abundance, and Jesus sees abundance in the scarcity of the resources at hand? Let me say that again. Think about it. How often do we see scarcity when there's abundance? And Jesus sees abundance in the scarcity of the resources at hand. Philip focused on the money needed, while Andrew dismissed the possibility of there being enough to feed everyone and that they would be leftovers to be gathered up. The crowd will become part of the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus had the disciples sit them down on the grass in an orderly fashion. Then he took the barley loaves, he gave thanks, and according to John's recollection, Jesus was the one who distributed the bread to the people, and he did the same with the fish. The crowd was fed, and they were plenty of leftovers, but they still wanted more. They tried to constrict Jesus for some earthly campaign because they remembered the promise that God would raise a prophet like Moses, and they concluded that Jesus was that prophet. The crowd missed the point of the miracle by failing to realize what the sign revealed. They wanted a king, a political or military figure to free them from the oppression of the Romans. But for Jesus, the miracles were a signpost leading to God's glory. Jesus escaped and went up a mountain alone, abandoning his disciples to fend for themselves. It was dark when the disciples went down to the lake and got into a boat to set out for Capernaum. After about 3 or 4 miles out, a strong wind blew and the waters were rough. In the darkness, the disciples saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were frightened. Moses needed the Lord to part the sea so he and the people could cross on dry land. But Jesus came walking on the water's surface. He came across the seas as Lord, and he revealed himself to the frightened disciples with the name that God gave to Moses, I am. They let Jesus into the boat, and immediately they reached the shore where they were headed. Just a couple of questions to ponder. The question I asked before, how often do we see scarcity when there is abundance? And Jesus sees abundance in the scarcity of the resources at home. And here's another question. And how often do we fail to see the depths of what God is doing and see how graciously God is acting among us because our focus is only on what serves our immediate desires and needs? Let me read that second question again. And how often do we fail to see the depths of what God is doing and see how graciously God is acting among us because our focus is only on what serves our immediate desires and needs?